Hello, everyone, and welcome to Decolonizing the Wisdom of Your Ancestor. And I am so excited to talk today with Lana Moon, the founder of Honeypot Energy and Art Center. And also, I would say you and I are very passionate about the subject that we are going to discuss today, because we are passionate about people. We're passionate about community. So today we're going to have a conversation about how we are going to decolonize wealth. So let's start off first. What does that mean to you, Lana, when we say decolonizing your wealth?
That's a good question, Nasa. So, well, first let's unpack what colonizing is, right? So if you think about colonizing, it is the division and control, divide and control a people. And then if you think about it in terms of wealth, you're dividing and controlling the wealth of the people. And so let's just think about that. Let's put that all in perspective, right? So let's just use the word 10,000. Let's just not even use. So we hear the 1%, the 1%, the 1% all the time. So the 1% controls all the wealth. 1% controls all the wealth. So let's break it down. You got 10,000 people, just 10,000. What's 1% of 10,000? 100 people control the wealth. So you got 9,900 people that are allowing, and I'm saying allowing for a reason, this 100 people to control the wealth. So what is it? What is it that keeps the 9,900 in control? Division. They're divided by all kinds of isms: racism, sexism, genderism, social status. They have all of these reasons why they're divided and they can't come together. And the truth of the matter is we the people assign value to currency. Currency has no value. It has absolutely no value. Back in the day, when I was a little girl, I know my grandfather had given me a silver dollar. And it was a little bit bigger than a quarter, and it was shiny, and I think it had a horse or something on it. Can't even remember, I hadn't seen one in so long, right? Silver has value. Gold has value. The dollars that we have now have absolutely no value. Us.
And by we mean really specifically us in the United States.
Us in the United States. We, the people, give value to the dollar. It's a fiat dollar. It means nothing. It holds absolutely no value. It's backed by nothing. It's not backed by oil anymore. It's not backed by gold. It's not backed by anything except debt. So it has no value. But we allow, in this scenario, 9,900 people. Let 100 people, we give them the value. We just give it to them. And that's what, to answer your question or to go back to it, that's what, colonized wealth is.
Absolutely. And let me just say this, let's talk about some of the reasons why we are continuing to value this dollar. And I always say, I tell people all the time, because, in the United States, we love to call other people broke. This person broke, that person broke. But when your country is $31 trillion in the debt, you are only as rich as the country that you live in. Because those 1%, let's just be clear, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they don't have all of their money in U.S. banks.
Oh, no, absolutely not. They have none of their money in U.S. banks.
So let's talk about that.
If you just look at the elite and there's lots of information out there, but if you just look at the habits of the elite, that's why there's offshore banks. That's why there's banks in Cayman Island. That's why there's banks in Swiss banks. That's why there's banks that cater to these people's money, because you think that they care when the government is like, oh, we're going to tax the rich. They have no money here to be taxed. They own nothing, control everything.
Right.
Because we allow them control, and I must say that, because people get in the mindset that the control is because they're being oppressed by something else. And that's just not the case. Basically, 9,000, if we go back to that scenario, 9,900 people cannot be oppressed by 100 people.
That's right.
They have to allow that.
It. Yeah, this is like that old adage a few months, I remember a couple years ago, and I was so heated back in 2020 where people was walking around talking about, I am not my ancestors and I wouldn't be putting up with this shit. And I'm like, you putting up with slavery every day. Every day you go to a job that you hate. Every day that you continue under this system that is here to steal your consciousness, which is, I want to transition because I have a lot of notes to really talk about people and why we are being controlled. But let's just say this, all of these isms that you discuss, the 1%, there's a certain, they want us to keep that system. They want, like, you know, the all of these racist organizations, you all are continuing to go into a system that is there to oppress even you.
We participate in the system in which we oppress ourselves, because we are the community and we are the collective and we are going back to that scenario, we're the 9,900. So we should be one, and we should be standing against any type of oppression or anybody hoarding wealth, right? But we don't, because we're too busy fighting each other. You know, fighting each other. And the sooner the collective starts to realize that no one person is any better than the other. No one type of people is any better than another type of people. We're all connected. We're all together. Do you believe, or do you even phantom that the 1%, those 100 people, are fighting amongst each other about anything? No.
Black, white, Hindu, Asian, they up there and they over there exchanging money and doing all of the deals. They're not saying, no, I'm not doing this deal because you're a black person, because they're not looking at that. They're looking at the green.
They're looking at the green. They're looking at hoarding the wealth and how can we keep it amongst us? How can we do that? So
even when we had there's so much I want to talk about. So Spirit, just keep me in line. Let's first talk about, because this is decolonizing. And so we want to talk about how we can decolonize the mind. And you and I, you know, in full disclosure, we are also friends, and we have conversations about this offline. And you really had a great point specifically to the melanated community, right? Talk about what colonization did as far as separating us as people, because I think your philosophy there is amazing.
I don't remember that philosophy, but
the backbiting and fighting.
So just think about the repercussions of colonization. So we got genocide, we have stolen land, we have slavery, and we have trauma. And most of us have experienced trauma in our lives, right? But just imagine that times a zillion, right? So you're talking about a people.
The world is now
in that system. Just think about a people that has been experienced so much trauma, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of trauma. And what do we do? What do we know about trauma as healers? We know that trauma
transformed is trauma transferred.
It's transferred, so it becomes encoded in our DNA, and it becomes a part of who we are and how we operate in our operating system. It becomes a part of our operating system, right? And so with that being said, how do people react to that, right? We fight or flight. We are protective. We protect ourselves. We feel the need to hoard as well, right? We got to get before somebody else does. And you see that in our community, and it's so sad. It's like, you know, people use the scenario, the crabs in the bucket, crabs in the barrel. You know, as soon as you see somebody climbing out the barrel, instead of the mindset thinking they're gonna get me, or let me go right behind them, I'm right on that ladder behind them, you're trying to push them back down, you know, trying to push them back down. That happens so often, but that's a reaction to trauma. It's
the scarcity that the colonizers created. They created such scarcity in our communities that now we're even, instead of the sharing, because melanated culture and indigenous culture, it was all about sharing. And it wasn't I got this attitude. There's you know, you and I both love Neil deGrasse Tyson. And he has that show Cosmos, and he talked about how our communities were not like that, that we, even amongst the smallest, the fewest, the weakest person in the community, we made sure that everybody was taken care of. Then the colonizers came in and created such scarcity that now we are even hoarding the little wealth that, or the resources that we have.
The resources that we have, instead of sharing, just think how much more you could have if you shared. Just think how much more you could have if you, if you had the mindset of bringing someone else along and creating, you know. And we're going to have to. It's going to be really important that we as a people, we get back to that point where we don't see things that way. That we change the face of what wealth looks like, right? Because we assign value to wealth. You know, like I said before, the dollar has no value, so we assign value to it. So when when we start changing the value of that, we can start changing the system. Quite frankly, just changing the entire narrative of the system altogether.
That's right. So before we really get into ways that we can redefine generational wealth, which is really what we want to do, we want to be able to give you guys a solution, right? But we have to be able to kind of look at the past and see what's going on. So let's talk about, because we are having what a lot of economists are saying is a great reset. And I love how they explained that the Great Reset is redefining social, financial, and economic customs, which now we're talking about customs, we're talking about behaviors and patterns, right? And so we have to change that. But let's revisit the current, let's try to wake people up a little bit, right? Because our confidence in this currency is a part of the long con, right? Keeping us focused on that. Let's talk about all of these people like that have this certain amount of money that are heavily attached to the banking system, and you broke if you don't have this amount of money. First and foremost, we need to know, because a lot of people don't know this. I did not know this, honestly, until I start researching for this specific broadcast. So I'm so glad and thankful for this. I did not know that when I am depositing my money in the bank, I am actually making an agreement with the bank to give them an unsecured loan with my money, meaning that the moment that I deposit that cash into the banking system, my money no longer belongs to me.
No longer belongs to you. Not only does your money no longer belong to you, the bank is going to take that money and they can use up to, I think it's up to 90% of it or something like that. So they're going to take it. So if you deposit $100 into your bank account, $90 of that immediately the bank is going to loan to someone else. And that's how money is created. And then that's loan to someone else and loan to someone else. So it's debt. The minute you sign a bank note, a note or a loan note, or you agree, that's debt. And that's how money is created. So yeah, your money no longer belongs to you. It never belonged to you.
A certain amount. I have a girlfriend went to take out $10,000 of her money. She had to fill out paperwork to withdraw her money. She was like, I didn't have to do all this paperwork to put it in the bank.
No, you don't have, well, up to anything over $10,000, they want to know where you got it from. So you do have to fill out some paperwork on that. Because of the Patriot Act. But to withdraw it, that's nice that they had it. Because I had a great friend go to withdraw money from Navy Federal, $5,000, and they let her know we don't have any money. We can't let you get that much out today because we don't have any.
And we've seen this happen in other countries where and let's just talk about this, because a few years ago the government bailed out the banking system, but the government has now said they can't bail because they don't have no money, okay?
Well, the government didn't have money when they bailed out the banking system. The Federal Reserve, the government, the United States of America, the United States of America Corporation, which we refer to as the government, is indebted to the Federal Reserve Bank. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a government agency. It is privately owned. It's a privately owned bank, and it lends money to the United States, so to speak. So whatever the debt, whatever it is, the deficit, whatever we're in, is owed to
the Federal Reserve.
The Federal Reserve.
Our first payment is coming up in June.
Which is why we're in a recession.
Yeah.
They don't have any money. So now they're like, okay, Well, the bill is come due. They need to pay the interest on it, hence why we are all in a recession. Believe it or not, don't let them tell me the economy is good. There's lots of jobs out there. We're in a recession. This is a recession. Dealing with a recession, the dollar has, the value of, there's no value in the dollar, but the fiat dollar, the perceived value of the dollar has diminished significantly, and they're moving over to this, what do they call it? This digital banking, this digital currency.
Supposed to be all fancy and good, which will be the beginning of the end, the mid of the end, because we really close to the end already.
Close to the end already. I don't know, Nasa, when I was in college and we used to hear the conspiracy theories about the New World Order. Did you used to hear about that? And they spoke of just this thing, right? And so now in the thick of it, you're like, oh, they weren't crazy after all. This is really to come, and you're seeing it happen. And you know it's real, you know it's no longer a conspiracy when the governor of Florida is doing a press conference saying, right in the media, letting them know, oh, Florida will not participate in this.
We're already seeing states, the first of them divesting. This reset of the dollar, if we allow it to happen, is going to be one of the catalysts of our next world war.
Of our next world war. And it's going to start with civil unrest. It's already starting. It's starting now.
So many people are not in tune to what's happening, and then when they go to the bank and try to access their money,
it's not there.
It's not going to be there.
It's not going to be there.
They're going to start yoking up.
And they're going to start yoking up. And people ask, so what's the big deal? So if they're just switching the dollars to, digital currency, don't we use digital currency now? Don't we use Cash App? Don't we use Apple Pay? What's the big deal? Well, the big deal is when the government is allowing the Federal Reserve to regulate this. And then now when you decide, let's just think about it. You decide, let's say you like to travel. And now you've traveled 10 times in a month. And the government decides to say, oh, your carbon footprint is too much. We're no longer gonna accept your digital currency for plane tickets. Or they add a surplus on it, another, exorbitant amount that you have to pay above and beyond so that you can do the things that you want to do. Or they say, oh, you know what? We don't feel like you're mentally stable. You cannot buy a gun. We don't feel like you've not been or religion or any rule. And so then it starts to interfere with your fundamental, because we have fundamental rights, not the rights that the United States government says. We have human rights, we have fundamental rights, as humans that it starts to interfere with, so that's the problem. That's the biggest problem. Who wants the government interfering with our monies in that way? They already interfere enough. Who wants to wake up one morning and their digital money is like depleted, deleted, gone? Because they needed it for something.
Mm-hmm.
Or
it can happen right now.
It can happen now. It can happen today.
You don't own your money. And yes, we have this FDIC insurance of $250,000, but if they don't have it to give, there's not enough money. We're already, for all intent and purposes, we really already are dealing with a digital dollar because the money is not real. But the difference is if I have $100 in my pocket and I can go spend that any way I like and the government doesn't have anything to do with it, now if I'm on digital currency, and not even the government, like you said, this Federal Reserve who is privatizing these funds, and we start thinking about commodities, right? I saw something on a financial analyst show where they were saying, okay, let's say if we get into shortages of meat, which we are, because we don't have enough food already, okay? There's a perceived food shortage when it's really outside in your backyard and local farmers and that are also being pushed out, but we ain't gonna talk about that right now, and burning their crops and doing all kind of stuff like that, honey. We're gonna try to stay where we are. But even then, you go to the grocery store, and we saw this happen during COVID. You can't, you can only have 5 things of eggs. You can only have this. You can only have that. Now think about this on a global scale. Now that we're going to the grocery store, oh, you've met your meat quota.
You've met your meat quota. Now we do know countries that is like that, right? Don't we know countries that's their standard? So is this what's happening in America now? Is this what we, the people, are going to allow, the majority? So yeah.
It's going to be a problem, and right now a lot of the banks are failing. So the Washington Journal actually posted an article in Wall Street Journal, in March of 2017 that listed 186 banks, more regional and local banks, that are in trouble of failing. This is a part of the system. They want those banks, those smaller banks, to fail, because those are the banks that you and I are going to, because the larger banks are they're working off of algorithms. The smaller banks, they know you. If you as a businesswoman, if you're dropping your deposits off, they know you. They have a relationship with you. And so you can go into that bank, they're going to lend based off of the relationship, not on the algorithm. If we have 6 major banks, which is what they're saying that we're going to go to, that we're going to only have 6 major banks: Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. I didn't write down what the 6th bank was. So these are the 6 major banks.
Those are also the 6 major banks.
They got bailouts, right?
That are the affiliated, hugely affiliated with the original founders of the Federal Reserve.
It's all collapsing. So guys, do your research right now. The economy and what you are perceiving as this physical dollar being the thing that you are holding your stability on, this is not going to be sustainable, okay? The physical dollar is going to be decreased. We already have the BRICS alliance, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, that are trying to destabilize the dollar, really, because they don't like us.
We're not going to participate. And so what happens, switches over to a digital currency, they don't want to participate in that. But the goal is to have a one world currency. So that, take that as you will, understand what happens when global leaders all over the world are not seeing eye to eye. What happens,
Okay, so I think we've given people a lot of really good information. It's never about fear, it's about preparing. The colonizers created fragmentation that is still within our DNA code that we need to work through. Even with my own ancestral circle, I am really always trying to encourage them, share your abilities. My philosophy is your abilities are the new currency. But what is your philosophy? How do we, because the system is going to do what the system is going to do, honey. And I thank the Republicans. I do not know why these Democrats are falling in and not speaking up about this and communicating to this, why the black churches are not trying to re-educate, because we know I saw Dr. Umar said that they are the new FBI because they're being subsidized by the government. We ain't gonna talk about that and get that down to, but we can see that people that are supposed to be on our level, at our best, have our best interests in mind, are not communicating. They're still keeping us in these same type of closed paradigms. So how can we protect ourselves?
Honestly, I don't think that they know. I think that they are so programmed and they are so divided. Religion is division. It's a divider. And then they tell people that's their leaders. Be in these columns, these different divisions. So I don't think that they know and to be able to educate us. And if they do, they just don't quite understand. But I think that you're right. What can we do? So we can start thinking about. We can actually change the narrative. We can change the definition of wealth, what wealth looks like.
We are defining it right now.
We define it. It doesn't matter what they call it. It doesn't matter if it's digital or if they, give it to us in raindrops. We define the value of it. And so we can redefine that. First and foremost, working together as a collective. I just love the new generation. I love non-binary. I love that term. Every time I hear it, it just makes me smile because you know what? No more division. I'm not this or that. I am who I am. And those are very powerful words. So we can start understanding that. I mean, if everybody just understood that, it would change everything. It would just change everything. But even bigger, I can see it especially in spirituality, being in spirituality, being in that, I don't want to call it field, but just being a part of, healers. I can see it coming out of our DNA, coming up from our ancient DNA, and you see people emerging as doulas, and they don't know why they want it to be a doula, and it's just naturally, instinctual for them. Farmers, herbalists, just all of these ancient crafts that are a part of who we are, a part of our spirit, a part of our ancestral heritage, or what is the word? Not even heritage. Genetics, not even that, but inheritance. And our genetic inheritance. And so just start assigning values to that. Just to reimagine what it would look like if we were like, okay, the farmers, let's give them a value of 10. The seamstress, let's give them a value of 6. The house build, the people that build the mason's tree, the craftsmen, let's give them a value. And we assign values to our abilities and our attributes, because we all may be different, but we all have something to offer one another, and we assign value to that and stop assigning the values to the dollar. Then we would hold the wealth.
Society would change, and it actually would change based off of what we even thought, because now when we look at high value man or high value woman, which makes me want to throw up when it makes me cringe when we're focusing on it, because we're still focusing on money. It's just another divider. While you have someone here who can, Yeye always says, shout out to Yeye Louisa Tish, she always said, you want a good husband, go to Home Depot. Find you somebody that knows how to build and how to bring things together. And so we're not putting a lot of focus on the assets. There is a show that I love. It's called Orville. I don't know if you've ever seen it. You can catch it up on Hulu. It's a sci-fi show by the guy who's Seth MacFarlane, who makes, all the whatever. And in Orville, currency was totally eliminated because they created something called the atomizer. So now people could say apple or fabric or whatever, and it would go. So the currency went away. So the new currency was people's abilities. It was how they contributed to society. That was the new measure of wealth. And what do you think is the barrier in us moving to that? Do you think that we'll ever get there? I'm hopeful, but
I'm hopeful. I think that as long as I'm hopeful. As long as we are still in the mindset of wealth being in the new Bugatti, as long as we're in the mindset of I have to have more than this person, as long as we're not sharing, we won't get there. But I'm hopeful because I can see it. I see people changing. I see people's values changing. I see people who, and there's nothing wrong with working in corporate America, but I see people that are artisans, that are making things and selling their goods to support themselves. So I'm seeing this every day, so I'm very hopeful. I hope and I pray that we evolve that or, build that up because, sooner than later. But it definitely.
We need to do it right now.
That's what I mean. Like
we're behind the 8 ball, a little bit, yeah, because they're already signing all of these laws. President Biden is, he's all for this central banking system. Of course, you and I have our philosophies, which we will not speak about today, of why that is happening. But there is this massive dominance right now. They're talking about sneaking the jibby jab in the food, which I prophesied that they was going to do that last year already in our medications. And the reason why that's and let's just say this, that alone, we don't talk about the amount of deaths that are occurring because of all of that. And now they're forcing it into our foods and forcing it into our medications. So that it is about world dominance. These people, I don't know where we've all of a sudden just have this just love for our government that just loves us and wants to do that. They are monopolizing off of our fear, because the more they can scare people, the more they can be able to control you. So even what we are communicating is not to scare people, it is to educate people.
It's to educate people. I hope that it sparks something inside of somebody to say, let me see if she knows what she's talking about. And, you know, and start digging and start looking. Just, you know, you don't even have to dig no more, but just start doing your own research and getting your own knowledge. You know what I mean? And like, oh, because once you open up that can, you're going to want more, because you're going to want to understand. You're going to want to understand what's really happening. And so that's my hope. I hope it sparks something, and I hope that the next person will spark something in someone else, and the conversation will continue and continue and continue to grow, and the collective, we, the people, will just make a good decision that we want to do something together, because the power is in the numbers. The power is in the numbers.
And that's why
we have the power and don't even use it.
They keep us divided and focused on dumb shit.
Dumb shit. Dumb shit. Dumb shit. Everybody's worried about President Trump's racist. They ain't worried about this. They're worried about that. What are you talking about? Go look at policies. Like, please, just go pull them up. Just read them for yourself. What are you talking about?
The Democrats do not make policies that are for people. They make policies for themselves. And then we have to agree that they're still all partying. They're all partying together. They're having us fight Republicans hating Democrats when they up there marrying each other, sharing money, sharing the wealth. Yes, it's hilarious.
Propaganda. You know, that a lot of us have subscribed to, and we have allowed it to continue to divide. If it's not one thing, it's another. As soon as we get over one hurdle of division, here comes some more bullshit. You know,
we fighting over race, we fighting over sex, we fighting over things that are going to keep us divided, when we now need to, and that's why even with religion, it's so frustrating to me, because religion does not bring wholeness. It's not bringing people together, which is what we need right now. Like the 9900, okay? We need to have a camp meeting and come together and start saying, how are we going to define wealth? Because this dollar, I mean, okay, so number one, here's what I anticipate. I know there's some economists that say, you know, they're going to chip the dollar and still make it so they can, because it's all about tracking. They want to track your purchases.
It's chipped already. The dollar has a stripe on it. I don't know if you've ever noticed it, but you might want to pull out and look at it. It has a stripe on it. The dollar does not belong to you. I've heard people say, well, take all your money out the bank and you'll still have your money and you'll be able to use your money. Dollar doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the Federal Reserve Bank. It says it right on the dollar. It says property of the Federal Reserve Bank. It says it on there. It's had a stripe on it. So no, you cannot be somewhere hoarding your money or thinking you're going to take it, because when they want to collect it, they will find it.
And they're going to decriminalize it. So I remember criminalize it. I remember in college, right, when the whole debit card thing started coming. And I remember I hated it, because you would go to places now and I'd have, well, in the beginning, it was like, all right, well, here's cash or whatever, and it was all cash. And then when I got the debit card, everybody wasn't taking the debit card, right? Now it's a reversal. There's some places now that won't take cash, and they're trying to slow boil us through it, right? And through the guise of convenience. I was just watching one of the economists and like, no, the government's not going to take the dollar away. We're going to voluntarily do it out of convenience. And then once it goes away, the next thing is going to come. They're going to criminalize. Why using or it's just going to be worthless. It's going to be like, it's not going to be worth anything. It'll be like me giving you this leaf for taking that to the grocery store now.
You won't be able to have it. But yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to say I'm guilty in my shops of going cashless. For the convenience and for the safety.
Safety.
For the safety, cashless. So,
So it's an inevitable thing. It's going to be forced upon us to be able to do that, and then that is when control is really going to stop. So the one thing that we're trying to communicate to you is start growing your own food so you can have control over what you can eat when you eat it.
Start building community so that you can have other people that have services and goods that you can offer and that they can offer, that you can offer one another.
Get a skill. Because if your skill is you showing up and going to go work somewhere every day, you are the very person that they're targeting for you to dominate. Everybody, regardless if you go to a job or not right now, you need to be getting you a hustle. You need to figure out and check in. Most of the time, when I'm, as an ancestor medium, I'll sit down and I'll have a reading and people will be like, oh, what's my purpose? And then I'll tap into the ancestors, and the ancestors, they'll come off with something like, oh, shamanic, you're going to be a shamanic this, or you're supposed to do. And sometimes people are excited about that. And sometimes they look at me like, that's not what I wanted to be the next CEO of such and such. Ain't no next CEO of nothing. Right now, like you said, the genetic inheritance, I love that, is coming back up. Most of the time, even when I am communing with ancestors, it's not the ancestors in the last 400 years unless they're coming to elevate something. Unless they're coming saying, I got anger, I got this. When we're talking, get to a client in their purpose, and now we're talking about what can be expanded, that shit is not coming from the ancestors from the last 400 years. I got them ancients coming out. That's like, okay, now you're supposed to be a herbalist, you're supposed to be a sound healer, you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to be that. Because first of all, let's just talk about this $31 trillion debt, and that the first payment is coming up extremely soon, which they're going to do a bail-in. First of all, the banks are going to take your money that you think that's yours. They're going to take that. And then there's going to be this whole other currency where they're going to start cutting Medicaid and Medicare. Okay? So I said this last year, Lana, herbalists, we all need to get together. We need to start coming up with the medicines and doing that, because so many people in our community are simply not going to be able to afford these pharmaceutical drugs.
And that's good. That's actually a good thing. It's a good thing to leave at the poison. I mean, I know there are some life-saving drugs out there. I'm not speaking against those, and probably shouldn't even be speaking against it anyway, but there are natural resources and natural ways to heal the body. The body heals itself. And so pharmaceutical industries, it has been a monster ensuing fear on the masses for a long time as well. So it's time for it's time.
And there's a couple of doctors who say that the more effective the drug is, the more toxic it is actually to the body.
Think about chemotherapy. Think about what that is. My mom went through chemotherapy the year before last, against my will. Because she had stage 1 ovarian cancer, and so they were able to remove it, and then the doctor wanted to do radiation and chemotherapy on top of it. And I told her, I said, that's just for the insurance money at this point. He said it was gone. He said he got it all. But it's that fear. So the fear, well, what if we didn't? This will insure. Nothing insures, number one. Number two, that it's so toxic. It's so toxic that your body immediately starts to reject it. You get nauseated. You want to throw it up. Your hair starts to fall out. Your nails start to turn black. Your black circles under your eyes. You're sicker than you were before you took it. You're sicker. But this is all to make you better?
Right. But we also have science now that says that sound is actually more effective form of pharmaceutical therapy than ingesting drugs. So a lot of times when these things are coming up in your readings and your divinations, and they're taking you back to ancient living, oh, you're a farmer, you're a cultivator, you're a builder, you're this, I always tell people, it's time to get out that corporate world. Look, let me tell you something. You and I both, we were six-figure corporate Barbies, okay, who decided to do something different. And entrepreneur life, it has its ups and downs and all of that, but it has a lot of freedom that comes with that, and our ability to be able to monetize who we are. And I think that's really the new wealth. So everybody, decolonize your mind when it comes to generational wealth, because if you are equating generational wealth with the accumulation of a physical dollar as was before, let's remind you, and I think, Lana, good, maybe we even work on this type of manifesto later on as far as this great reset, right? So the great reset is coming in social, financial, and economic customs. Off the top of your head, what are some new social customs that need to come out of this reset, in your opinion?
New social customs would be sharing and caring. I would love to see more of that. Really just inclusiveness. Let's go to the spiritual, opening up that heart chakra. Letting go of fears, fear of lack, fear of limitations, just all the fears that we have that limit our ability to be open to one another. Poverty consciousness. Oh, there's more than enough. Even when the shit hits the fan, even when the propaganda campaign starts and everybody looks like the world is in a panic and there's not enough, there's always enough. Mother Earth will always provide. There's always enough. There's more than enough. There's no reason why we should be consistently fearing or living in a lack and poverty consciousness. We have to let that go. That is conditioning.
It is conditioning, because we don't even live in that same world where, and I think when we're talking about, ancestral trauma, we are talking about those conditions that are constantly passed down, and we have this scarcity mindset. I can't do anything. I can't go anywhere. People will reject me, when we really don't even live in that society. I mean, there's always going to be somebody that has something to say, but so that's shouldn't be a reason for you not to do anything, because if 10 people have something negative to say, you're going to have 20 people that have something great to say. And even with me, when I first started, I used to put so much focus on the people who had something negative to say. And now I'm like, of course you're going to say something negative. Of course. You and I both, we're disruptors. We came down here to liberate people. Okay, let's just talk about that. So that is going to take a rewiring of consciousness. So I love that. So social, financial, we talked about that. The financial great reset will be removing the value from the dollar and putting the value on the person.
On the person, what the person has to offer, and we all have something to offer, and understanding that there's no one person
that's inferior. Nobody's inferior. Nobody's more valuable. That everybody is here in the eyes of the universe. We are all equally valuable, equally as important.
As are the trees, as are the birds, as are the blades of grass. And so once you realize that, I think that's huge. That's a huge realization. So it was huge for me when I came to the realization that I'm one with everything. And that bird is just as valuable. I don't have any right or reason or rhyme to be stepping on a grasshopper, you know what I mean, or crushing anything or hurting anything. That's a huge perspective shift.
Yeah, I think that's where you really come into the oneness of thing. And then this is what are some economic customs? What are some new economic customs? That's a hard one.
That's a hard one. Yeah. That's a hard one. I think that we can start with small things like sharing, for example, what we do with the Honeypot Collective. We allow, or we encourage, we love to share our space, our shelf space, with other blooming businesses, artists, artisan businesses that are making things and that are growing. So if more people did that, how great would that be, right? You can really start really small. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a giant. You don't have to be holding and hoarding the wealth to share and give and.
Because the hoarding is based out of fear of not having enough, yeah. Yeah, I have worked through a lot of poverty consciousness very deep in my bloodline, and I know in the past that it always affected how I shared and what I shared, and so a lot of that does open to that. Well, this has been a great conversation. We really could. There's so much going on in this economic field and things that people need to work on, but I think the overall thing that we are trying to say is return to the wisdom of our ancestors, which they shared, they cooperated with everything. And like you said, even the insect and the animals, they gave and they shared that as well, and I think the more we start adopting that, the better off we would be. Any final thoughts?
I totally agree with that. I just encourage everyone to just open their eyes, open their heart, and just take heed and look around and start preparing. Just start preparing.
Yeah, start preparing. Well, this has been great, guys. Such a great interview. Let's check in with Kelly and see the energetic support that we have out in the stratosphere to support this great reset of redefining social, financial, and economic customs. And we'll see you in a couple more weeks with another exciting episode of Decolonizing the Wisdom of Your Ancestors, when we will be talking to the pussy priestess, okay, Nina Simone, about how we can decolonize our womb and vulva space. And I want the men to be showing up that too, because you guys are a part of that decolonization. So let's go ahead and jump to Kelly and see what the energetic support is.